Hello and welcome to this session. Today's session is going to be very easy and very interesting. We are going to learn page object model and we are going to implement page object model in our Selenium Python project. So we will see what is page object model, how do we implement it in our Selenium Python project, and we will do demo and hands-on. So let's get started, and before going into the steps of how do we create and implement page object model in our project, let us first understand what is page object model. So if I search for page object model and go to the images, you will see some images here. Let us see this one. Alright, so here you can see if we keep all our element locators, all our test scripts along with all our test data in a single script or a single class, this is a non-POM structure, or this is not a page object model because we are keeping all our element locators, test scripts, test methods, data all in a single script. And this can be very problematic in the future. As your code increases, you have lots of test cases, you have lots of code, you will have everything inside a single file, that you may have some issues whenever you want to make any changes or any updates. Therefore we go to the page object model structure. Here we keep the element, the locators of the element and the action on the locators separately in a class, and all the test scripts are located separately, and these test scripts or test methods refer the locators and the actions. So let's say, for example, if I have a login page, let me go to this demo website, and let's say if I go to the login section, we have to do login here. So here, let's say this is a separate page, login page, as there is normally in on your applications or websites, you may have a separate page for login. You will have to create a test case for login where we have to interact with username, password, and the login button. Now if you keep all the locators, all the test scripts, all the data in a single file, in a single script, later on if there are any changes in, let's say, in the locator of the username text box, suppose you have used this particular locator of the username in, let's say, 10 test files or 10 test cases in different test scripts, you will have to go into each and every file or class or test script and make the change there. Similarly, whenever there is any update, any change, you will have to go and make changes everywhere, and this is not a very efficient way. Therefore we use page object model where we keep all the locators separately. In fact, we also keep the actions like enter username, enter password, click on login, all these actions also separate, and these can be referred in any of the test scripts multiple times, and whenever there is any changes to be done, we just go to a single class where we have these locators and actions and we make the changes there. Okay, so this is what page object model is. I have created a very detailed video as well on this page object model. If you go to my website automationstepbystep.com, I believe it is in the I think Selenium Java framework playlist. If you want, you can check that. Otherwise, a basic information on what is page object model should be enough. So if you go here, yes, there is what is page object model here. You can check this one if you want to. But coming back, we will now implement page object model in our Selenium Python project. So the first step we have to do is, in our project we will create two folders or two directories, one for pages and the other one for tests, and we will keep all the pages file in the pages folder. So basically, generally in page object model, for every page of your application you should have a separate file or a separate class. For example, login page, they will be in a separate class, the home page will be there in the separate class, the users page, and so on, and all the element locators of that particular page and all the actions that you have to do on that particular page will be present in the class of that particular page. So it will be very easy, very structured. So let's do this. I will go to my project, and here you can directly create a folder, pages and test two folder under your project folder, but just for this demo I'm going to create first a folder under my project folder. I will do right click on my project folder and create a new directory, and I will call it as pom demo, so that you will know that the page object model demo related files are here. Otherwise you can directly also create folders directly under the project folder. So I'm going to create two folders, pages and tests, under the pom demo folder. I will say this is pages, and again one more folder, tests. Alright, so we have created these two folders here. Okay, step number 2 is in the tests folder we will create a Python file logintest.py, and then we will create a simple login test there. Now you can name it anything, but keep the names meaningful. So under the test folder I'm going to do a right click, new Python file. I will call it as login_test and enter. So login_test.py is created, and here I can create a basic login test, or I can also copy a login test that we created in the last session when we learned PyTest with Selenium. Yes, it is here. So I'm just going to copy this one. It is not necessary that you have to copy this PyTest test. If you have any simple basic login test, you can take that, or any simple test you can use that. I'm doing this so that we have a continuity. In the last session we discussed PyTest, so you will know how to continue from there. So here we will have PyTest as well, and then we will implement page object model. But even if you have a very simple test, that is also fine. So I have just copied the PyTest that we used in our last session here. Let me close all these extra files here. Okay, and you can see this is the login test. I'll just save it, Control S on my keyboard, and run. Do a right click and say run, just to make sure that this is all working fine. So it opens the Chrome browser, opens the applications and logs in, and this will use three parameters. If you remember, in the last session we did parameterization and we used three sets of data here. So it will be using these three sets. This we do not require for now here, so I will remove this in a moment. So I don't require this. I'm going to remove this parameterization, and of course I will have to remove the parameters from here as well, and this will create some errors, which is fine for now. We will fix these later. So as of now we have just created a simple login test under the tests folder. Now step number 3 is under the pages folder we will create a Python file login_page.py, and then inside the file we will create a class LoginPage. Again, these names can be anything, but keep them meaningful as per the name of the page that you are using. So I will go to the pages folder, do a right click, new Python file, and say login_page, hit enter. So it is created, and now I will create a class. I will say class login page and colon. So this is how we create a class in Python. Now just in case you are completely new to Python and you want to learn the basics, how to create classes, objects, and some very basics of Python, I'm parallelly creating another series playlist on Python beginners. I will keep a link in the description of this video as well, so you can check that, and you will also find that on my website as well. I will keep a link here as well for Python beginners, so you can check that. But anyways, I will keep a link here as well in the description of this video, and I'm also going to keep all the notes, all the code in the description of the video, so you can refer from there. And if you face any issues, if you have any questions, you can let me know in the comment section and I will reply to you. Okay, so I have created a class login page, and then in the login page class we will create a constructor and take the driver parameter. So I will say def, and this is how we create a constructor, and I'm going to create a init function, init constructor, and here I'm going to also get the driver as the argument. So the reason we are doing this is when we create this constructor init, and this constructor will be called whenever an object is created for this class, and we can use this feature to force the user to send some arguments, or give some values for some variables, etc. So in our case we want to get the driver instance. So when we start our test from this login test file, we will be having the WebDriver instance, that is driver, and we want to continue with that particular driver instance. Therefore we are forcing the user to pass us that driver instance by making this init constructor. All right. If you face any issues, you can just for now follow me, and later on you will come to know why we are doing all this. So inside this constructor, inside this function, I will say self dot driver equals driver. So what this means is we are creating a class variable for this class called driver, and we refer it using the keyword self, and then we are making it equal to the driver which we get from the inside this constructor from the calling script, or whenever this object is created, it will be passed, the driver will be passed, and this will be made equal to the class driver. And then in the code in this class we will be using this driver, which is now referring to the driver that is passed here. Okay, now we will be creating the locators. So step number 5 will be, we will now create the locators for all the elements that we have to work with on the login page, and we will also create the function for all the actions that we have to do on these elements. So for that, within this constructor function, I will say self. We use the self keyword to refer to any class, variable, attribute, etc. So we will say self and give some name to a variable. So for every element here, let us say we have to interact with username text box, password text box, login text box, we will create a variable and create the locators. So I will say username underscore text box. You can keep the name anything, but it is good to keep some meaningful names. Generally we keep the name of the element, and we also give what is the type. So anybody who will look at it will know that we are referring to username, which is a text box on the login page. So here we will give the locator, so I can just copy it from my login test, and later on we will remove it from here, but for now let me just copy it from here. If you are using any other test, you can just get the locators of your element and create this. I will say, then we have password, I will say password underscore text box, and again I will get the locator. And here you can see I am getting an error under the by class because we have not yet imported it. So I will hover over it, and we are getting an option to import it from Selenium WebDriver. So now it is done here. Okay. Similarly, I will say self dot login underscore button, and I will again copy this from here. Okay, so we have got the locators created for all the elements of the login page. Now we will create the functions for the actions that we have to do. So I have to do first entering of the username. So I will create the first thing I have to do is open the web page. So I will say def and create a function open page. You can name it anything, and here you can see in the function, in the class function also, the very first parameter is self by default, and then you can add your parameters if you have to pass any arguments or parameters here. So I have to get the URL, and then here I will say self dot driver dot get the URL. So basically this this script driver dot get the URL, this we are now putting it here inside this function open page. Then the next function we have is enter username. So I will create a function called enter username, and here we have to get the username from the calling script, and here I will say self dot driver dot find element, and here I will just refer to this username text box that we created. So I'll say username text box, and then I will say send keys, and whatever username is passed. And you can see this this, if we want, we can hard code it here, like I can directly say test here, but that will make it the usage of this will be limited, and we can only use it if we have the username test. But if we want to make it generic, we will just refer the variable or the attribute, the parameter that gets here, that is passed to this function, so that now we can make this, we can use this function for any value of username. Similarly, I will create a function enter password, and here I will pass the password. Now, just in case you are finding it a little difficult to understand, don't worry. Once we have the complete code written, we have all the references done, you will understand it better. I will again say find element, and again I am going to refer to the password text box, and I will say dot send keys, and I will pass the this password here. Okay, now see, as of now I am creating separate functions for every action, like open page, enter username, enter password. If you want, you can create a single function and club all these actions. For example, you can create a function called login test, or something like do login actions or login actions, whatever name you want to keep, and then you can keep all these functions, enter username, enter password, all these scripts in a single function. So this depends on you. If you want to keep separate functions or a single function, it will also depend on the ease of your team. If they know the scenario very well, and they know that when we mean login, this will have all these steps, everyone knows that in the team, you can keep a single function. Otherwise, you can split these into separate functions. Also, whenever you want to check and refer that where is this text box, username text box, password text box, or any driver, where it is referred from, you can hover over it and press control on your keyboard. It will turn into a link, and then you can click on it, and you can see it is taking us to this. Okay, this will work for functions as well. I will show you that later. You can just hover over the text, press control, it turns into a link, and click, it will take you to that particular reference. Okay, the next function we have is click login button or click login. Here we don't have any argument, we should not be passing any argument, we just have to click. So I will say self dot driver dot find element by, I will say self dot login button and dot click. All right, so here we have got all our actions created. Okay, now we have done step number 5. We have also done step number 6. We have created functions for all the actions we have to do on login page. Now, so now you can understand, when we were looking at this image, we said that in page object model we keep the element locators and methods separately in a class, and that is what exactly we have done now. We have kept the element locators and the actions or the methods on these elements separately in a class called LoginPage class. And now you can also see this, that whenever there will be any change in any of the locators or any element in this page, the only place we will have to go and make the changes is this LoginPage class. And every script, every test scripts where we have to refer these, where we are using this, from everywhere, this will be referred to all the scripts from here. So we have to make changes only at this location if there are any changes, if there are any requirements on the login page. Okay, now step number 7 is we will go back to our LoginTest file and we will import this LoginPage class. So let us do that. I will go here to the LoginTest file, go to the top, and here I will say from pages dot, it is not able to find it, I will have to give double dots, and yes, now it is able to see this pages dot login page. I will say import the login page class, and again if you want you can hover over this login page, press Ctrl on your keyboard, it turns into a link, and click, and it is taking us to this login page class. So this means our reference is fine. Now we will create an object for the login page class in our test function so that we can now access the attributes of this class. That means the functions and any data in this class we can access using the object of the class. So for that you can go to the test function. This is my test function here, and here I will say you can give any name to the object or the object reference. I will say login page equals and the name of the class login page along with parenthesis, and here you can also see it is asking us to pass the driver instance. So I will just pass the driver instance as well. If you do not do this and if you try to run, it will throw an error because now in the login page class we have the init constructor which will be called as soon as the object is created, and here we are forcing the user to pass the driver instance, and that is why now you can see we are passing the driver instance, and this is why we created the constructor so that we can continue with the same driver instance that we start from this test class or this test script. Okay, now using the login page object or the reference, we can access all the methods. So if I say login page dot, here we can see we have got the open page function. Here I will have to pass the URL. Okay. Also, if you hover over this, press Ctrl, it turns into a link, click, and it takes us to this function. So now you can see when this will be called, it will go to the login page class, go to the open page function, and this URL will be passed here to this URL. It will be stored here, and this will be then passed here. So it will be driver.get and the URL we are passing. Okay. Then I will say login underscore page dot enter username, and here we have to pass the username as well, which is test. Then I will say login underscore page dot enter password. The password is also test, and then we will say login underscore page dot click login, and that's it. And all this is now not required, and if you want you can comment it out, press Ctrl// or you can also remove this. Okay, we can also add the time.sleep here. So you can see now how simple the code looks here. It is very easy, it looks very readable, and now we have also implemented page object model here. Okay, so I'm just going to add the time.sleep statements, and this I'm doing so that we can see the screen and see the actions on the screen, otherwise it is not required. After every action I am adding this so that we can just see what is happening on the screen. Okay, so we have done step number 8, and we have also done step number 9, replace the test scripts with the login page function calls. So let us now run and check if this works fine. I will do a right click here and say run. and let's see. Okay, I think there is some error. I will have to check. I will just double click here to expand this, and here uh, import error while importing test module. Okay, it is saying should use valid names. Let me check this one. What is the problem here? I think it is the problem is here. Okay, I think it is complaining about these dots I have put, although when I checked, when I say double dot, it is here, it is able to refer and show me pages, but some issue. For now I will have to check in detail, but just for now I'm going to keep this, I'm going to create a pages folder, or I'm just going to move this pages folder within the tests folder, so that as of now I can complete this demo. So within the test folder I have the pages folder, and then I have the login page class. So if I have to refer this, I will say yes. Now you can see it has updated this by default. Also when I do a hover over it and press control, it is able to refer to this login page. Let me just now save and run this and check. Yes, it is able to now refer and open the browser, but then it failed. If I again check here, this has failed on this WebDriver session. Okay, enter username. So it was able to open the page, but then it is checking here. I think we can use the splat operator here in the locators, where we are referring the locators. So I'll just use a star here, which is called the splat operator, so that it will refer the positions as well. Okay, let me now again run this and check. So it opens the browser, and yes, it enters username test, password test, clicks on login, and then it checks it is all fine. And here we also have this assert successful on driver page source. If you want, you can also create a function for this and keep it in the login page class, but if you don't want, that is also fine. I'm just going to remove all this so that you can see, and I will double click here and expand. So you can see this is how our test now looks like in a page object model. It is very simple, very clean, it is very understandable, and all our elements and the actions are located separately in a separate class, in a separate file. Whenever there will be any changes on the page, if the element gets changed, if the locators get changed, if there are any new actions to be added, any action gets changed, we will just have to go to this particular file, this particular class for login page, and make the changes here, and it will be referred to all the tests wherever it is being used. And same goes for all the other pages. We will be creating a separate class for every page, and this is how we will be doing page object model. Step number 10, run and test, we have already done, and I hope this was very easy and very interesting. And now you have got a basic framework created for Selenium with Python. We have got all the structure, we have implemented PyTest, we have implemented page object model. So this is your fundamental basic structure of Selenium Python project. Now using this, you can do anything. You can create more tests, you can expand it, you can add more examples, you can see examples on how to interact with different elements, the pop-up boxes, alerts, radio buttons, date pickers, file upload, etc. You will see, you can find examples all over the internet. So my intention here was to get you started with Selenium Python, make your Selenium Python framework ready, implement PyTest and implement page object model, and now you can expand it, you can add anything on it. So I hope this was very useful. If you have any questions, you can let me know, and I hope this all was very interesting. Thank you for watching, and never stop learning.